This is an ADC warning. The crimes you're about to see are true. Only the names were changed to protect the ignorant. Tonight on America's Dumbest Criminals, you'll see the crook caught by the cop without a kickstand, surveillance cam footage we call Stuff Yourself, and a blackjack player who really takes a hit. These are just a few of America's Dumbest Criminals. Welcome to America's Dumbest Criminals. I'm Daniel Butler. We're going to show you real crimes told by real cops. True stories, but with a twist. See, we've gone around the country, from police station to police station, asking the men and women of law enforcement to tell us about the crooks who didn't get away. You're about to meet the elite of the criminally inept, the sour cream of the crop, as we open the files on America's Dumbest Criminals. Our first story comes to us from Foster Arnett about a painful robbery we call die pack.
We had a situation probably about 10 years ago where a would-be robber went into a bank, held up the bank at gunpoint, and he went up to one teller and he said, "Give me all the money, but I don't want any die packs." So she gave him a bundle of money, and he assumed he was home free because he said, "I don't want any die packs."
A die pack is a small explosive device filled with colored dye. When it explodes, everything in the area gets stained.
He was emitting all kinds of smoke, and orange fumes were coming out of his pants, and he was taken into custody shortly thereafter.
Kids, do not try this at home, especially south of the border. And now, actual security cam footage of the man we dubbed the electronic store Vidiot. This guy was a pro. He knew what he was there for, and he went for them. Video camcorders. He's got one, he's got two, he's got three, he's got four. Are there any camcorders over here? No. Oh, wait, there's some more over here. Oh, and there's one left in the window. There, got it. Yes, he got every camcorder in the store. Well, except for one. The one which was later used to convict him, which he's staring at right now. Next up, a cooperative crack smoker leads himself to arrest in a story we call Pipe Dream.
I was out with Broward Sheriff's Office one time working a monthly operation we did called Crackdown, where we went out and did street-level narcotics enforcement. And we were up in Pompano on a road up there. It's real bad for drug sales. And one of our guys had done an undercover drug buy, so we were trying to locate the bad guy in this bar. So when we all jumped out of the van, we detained 5 or 6 people there. And in the state of Florida, if you have a crack pipe or something like that that has a little bit of cocaine residue on it, if it fuel tests positive, you can be charged with possession of cocaine because of zero tolerance. Most of the people out there know that. And so we had these guys detained, and one of the deputies looked over at him and said, "Look, we got a drug dog on the way. If any of you guys have any crack pipes or anything like that, you might want to get rid of them now. Just throw them on top of this building."
We got drug sniffing dogs on their way right now. If any one of y'all carrying or holding any dope whatsoever, you best to get rid of it now.
This guy reaches in his pocket and pulls out a crack pipe.
What was that? Boy, you going to jail.
Of course, he went to jail for possession of cocaine.
What was that? What would you just throw?
It was nothing,
You
man.
didn't throw nothing at all?
It was
Are you
garbage.
sure about that?
It was garbage.
Hold
It
up,
was
Cal. Watch
garbage.
out, Cal.
ADC quiz number 862. In Alexandria, Virginia, a robber pointed what appeared to be a 9mm semi-automatic handgun at 3 well-dressed men and demanded their money. Were the men A, too frightened to move, B, sympathetic to the criminal's social plight, or C, off-duty federal agents who drew their guns and fired on the would-be assailant? The correct answer was C, they were off-duty federal agents. This was not Mo, Larry, and Curly. Sergeant Doug Baldwin tells us about an interesting drunk driver we call the backseat driver.
One of the best excuses I've heard when I was concerning a traffic stop
One of our officers was on patrol and observed this van weaving across the center line. Obviously, this guy was either sick or he was intoxicated, so the officer pulled the van over. The guy that was driving the van slid over in the other seat, the passenger seat of the van. And when the officer got up to the window, he shined his light and says,
"Sir, can I see your driver's license registration?"
I wasn't driving. He was.
And this big teddy bear back there, stuffed animal, sitting on the back seat. And the officer says, "Get out of the van," to the guy. And the guy get out of the van, and he's obvious DUI.
And now, actual surveillance cam footage of stocking stuffers stuffing themselves. The shoplifter family is doing their Christmas shopping on surveillance video. Fish line. This would be great for Uncle Louie. And let's see, what about Cousin Bob? Well, yeah, he'd like some fish line too. Well, and then there's Sis. I wonder what I should get Sis for Christmas. Well, how about fish line? Well, and then there's Mom too. Hey, I know, fish line. Well, but now I gotta get 6 rods and reels down my pants. Coming up on America's Dumbest Criminals, surveillance of a guy we call the Dwayne with no brain.
We're all familiar with the old adage, people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. We would guess that for a lot of our dumb criminals, that old saying holds true. But some of them do have a plan. Yet inevitably, somehow, something gets lost between scheme and execution. Some small detail gets overlooked. And the next thing you know, they're on this show. Like this next guy. Let's meet the Dwayne with no brain.
Now, if you were dumb enough to rob a convenience store, as Dwayne did, you might drive a rental car, as Dwayne did, and you'd probably wear a ski mask, as Dwayne did, but you probably wouldn't wear your work uniform, yes, as Dwayne did. At the Cedarwood Apartments, the police found Dwayne with the ski mask, the gun, and the money. He's definitely a candidate for the Witless Protection Program. In Boston, it used to be against the law for nightclubs to have frog jumping contests. However, frog-like line dancing is allowed.
Our next story comes to us from the city that never sleeps, Las Vegas, Nevada. It involves a dysfunctional family, a car dealer, a grandmother, a card dealer, kidnapping, bank robbery, and gambling.
It was back in about 1989, and they had a bank robbery down in Henderson, where 2 brothers and their 70-year-old mother went into a car dealership, and they took one of the test drives with the car dealer, and they kidnapped him, put him in the trunk. Then they went to one of the local banks there and robbed the bank. Well, one of the citizens inside followed them, and somehow they followed him to Railroad Pass, which is a casino in between Boulder City and Henderson. And so they staked out around it to keep him inside, and they staked out on the car. So they called us. I was in SWAT at the time, and they wanted us to make entry and take the people out. So what we did is we went into the security office and we looked in the monitors, and we could see where they were inside the casino from the description. But they were talking to other people, so we didn't know exactly who all was involved. So we decided to dress up like cooks and dishwashers and put on the garb and hide our guns under trays and things like that and go inside. We went inside, we found one of them sitting at a 21 table. And he was getting dealt cards, and as the dealer was dealing, she had her head down, dealing to him. We decided to take him off right on the table. Well, as the dealer is dealing, she just bypassed him for that time, went on to the next deal. And all these people that were playing 21 watched the whole time. They never looked down at us taking this guy in custody. They were more interested in their cards. So as we're going through it, we find the other brother, but we can't find Mom. So we looked around quite a long time, and she was apparently somewhere gambling. So we just paged her and had her come to the cage. So she came walking up to the cage, so we took her into custody. So they all went into custody for bank robbery.
Ironically, the number of years that the 3 of a kind will spend in prison is 21.
And now, actual surveillance cam footage we call the Gang's All Here. 1 little, 2 little, 3 little, 4 little dumb criminals, 5 little, 6 little. Well, there were 15 dumb criminals in all who entered this department store at night. It was well planned and well choreographed. They went right for what they wanted to steal. But watch what happens when the spotter car pulls up to say the police are on their way. Watch closely. The dumb criminal cars crash into each other. There's only one way for a cop to get the Kickstand Blues. Dennis Larson explains what happens when a motorcycle cop loses his kickstand. He can't stop.
But I was kind of in a dilemma at that point, is that I had to get the bike to the shop because I couldn't get off of it. There was no kickstand. So I was headed for the barns to get the bike repaired. There's a guy in an enduro dirt bike. He's up in traffic, and he's riding on the left and on the right of cars, and he's speeding, and he's cutting everybody off. And I can't tell anybody, hey, I can't stop him. I don't have a kickstand to put down on this bike. Well, his driving got so out of hand, and everybody kept looking like, why is this motor cop not doing anything? Well, his driving got so out of hand that I figured I've got to do something. So I eventually got up behind him, and pulled him over. But once I got him stopped, I was on the bike and I couldn't get off, and he had no idea. So I told him to get off his motorcycle and put the kickstand down there and come back, and I had him straddle the front wheel of my bike and grab a handlebar on each side, and I told him to stand there, and I let go of the handlebars and go off, and he was standing there holding the bike, and I checked out on the radio, told him I was going out on a traffic stop here, and he's standing there holding it. I said, where's your driver's license at? And he said, it's in my wallet. So I pulled his wallet out, and I had him show me where it was at, and I got the registration from the bike out there. I get my ticket book out, and I write him a ticket, and then I said, okay, I set the ticket book down on the fairing of the bike, and I said, let me have the bike, and I'm holding it, and he takes the ticket book up and signs it, and then we swapped again, and I tear the ticket out, and I stuffed it in his pocket, and I told him thank you, and he kind of went back and got on his bike, but he had this real puzzled look, and he comes back to me, and I'm sitting on the bike now, and he says,
why was I holding your bike up?
And I said, well, I don't have a kickstand on this thing, and if I couldn't get off it if you hadn't held the bike up, you know. And the guy turned around and he said, if I hadn't wanted to stop, what would you have done? I said, well, I'd have followed you, but I could have never gotten off the bike, you know. I was stuck on this thing because there was no kickstand. And he walked off with this bewildered look on his face, like, you know, if I'd have just kept going, I'd have never gotten the ticket, you know.
Coming up on America's Dumbest Criminals, see an undercover narcotics cop who has to get wily with his wire in a tight situation.
Bank robbers are a breed of their own, especially the dumb ones. And we'll be bringing you a lot of dumb bank robbers as the season goes on. But right now, we found a bank robber in Louisiana who wore what has to be America's dumbest disguise.
Do not adjust your television set. The man you're looking at is covering his head with whipped cream from a can. As a disguise, this was his first mistake. Now let's watch his second mistake. There's a long line at the teller's window, so he waits in it. Notice how inconspicuous he is. By the time our human marshmallow sundae gets up to the window, his mask has started to melt and ooze. No one in the bank could keep a straight face. The teller had long since pushed the silent alarm. The police arrived, and the man was arrested. Our creamy crook was taken to the cooler and received his just desserts in a court of law. And now, actual surveillance camera footage of a postal worker becoming disgruntled. Folks, there are surveillance cameras everywhere, even in the post office. Look, this one's for me. It says, I may already be a winner. I'll just put it in my windbreaker until the federal marshals come to take me away. Now, into the courtroom for trial and error. A bank robber was immediately recognized by the teller he robbed. How did she recognize him?
Mrs. Payne, how can you say that my client is the man who robbed the bank you work at?
Well, he's banked there for most of his life, and he didn't wear any kind of disguise.
Well, Mrs. Payne, isn't there the slightest chance that you could have mistaken someone for my client's familiar face?
I don't think so.
Why is that?
Because after he robbed the bank on Friday, he came back on Monday and tried to make a deposit with the bills still in the wrappers.
In Nebraska, it used to be against the law to drive on a dark road without shooting fireworks. The law was changed when one farmer got carried away late one night.
Undercover narcotics work is unpredictably dangerous. If you're not quick on your feet, you could be dead on your feet.
I was working undercover narcotics, and I had made a drug buy from a man in a restaurant. He told me if I needed anything else to call his beeper number, and he or one of his men would get back in touch with me and bring me what I needed. So we were trying to accumulate as much evidence as possible on this suspect, so we planned to make a second buy. When you make these undercover narcotic buys, the supervisors want you to wear lots of electronic equipment to document the evidence and to record the event. So I was equipped with several wires, if you will, and went to make the second buy, and I arrived at the restaurant and I saw who I thought was the man that was going to deliver the drugs to me, and I was supposed to meet him inside the restroom. So I went into the restroom and he came in behind me, and I was kind of surprised that the restroom was a lot smaller than I thought it was going to be. We were chest to chest there. Well, when the man came in, I looked at him and he stuck out his hands as if to shake my hand. Instead, he began to frisk me and he pulled open my coat and began to feel around and...
Hey, man, how you doing? Hey,
Hey, I'm doing.
what are you doing?
What the hell is this, man? This is a wire. You're a cop.
No,
You're a cop.
No.
Bang, right there, he found one of the devices that I was wearing. And he began to scream, and he went off and he said, "You're Vice, you're the man." And I said, "No, I have a medical problem, and that's a pacemaker." So he thought about that for a minute, and he bought it.
No, pacemaker. Pacemaker, got problems.
And he continued to frisk me, and he found yet another device, and he said, "That's it, you're a cop." And
What's this? You got two hearts?
"No, I have a medical problem. That's an insulin pump."
That's an insulin pump, man. I got problems.
You got money?
Yeah, I got the money.
See the money. You shouldn't be doing drugs, man. You're unhealthy.
He bought that too and continued to think about it, and he did the deal, and then we took him down. He's, I guess, one of the dumbest criminals I've seen. I'm glad he was.
Welcome back to America's Dumbest Criminals. You know, speeders always have an excuse for why they're driving so fast, and the cops have heard them all. But let's listen now as Las Vegas detective Gordon Martinez tells us about a speeder he once stopped with an excuse that he'd never heard before, or since.
And it was just at the crack of dawn, and this guy was really cooking. He was doing about 65 in a 35 zone again. It was on Jones, as a matter of fact. He got out, and he says, "You're not going to believe this. I'm a vampire, and I need to hurry up and get back in my coffin before the sun comes up." I said, "We'll write this really quick so you can get going." See you later.
Well, that's our show for tonight. We thank all of you for watching, and as always, our thanks to the men and women in police departments around the country for their help, their humor, and their generosity in making this show possible. Until next time, break a leg, but don't break the law. I'm Daniel Butler. God bless.